Hi, I wanted to go through one of these first PDFs of to show you the context that we are studying within of history. So the first thing I wanted to do is to show you um, that we are studying modern history, but I want to show you what came before, and you're going to be familiar with some of this. Um, this is a PDF, it's in the course. So one of my other classes I'm not teaching anymore is the 157, and it's the whole survey. So what came before obviously is the prehistoric. This includes cave paintings. These are the first known marks of man, human beings. This came a little bit later, this one, and you can see how simplistic this is compared to this. And it depends on the time. It went from about 25,000 BC to about 10,000 BC. So they're showing some detail here. These you can tell are almost like stick figures, whereas what they're drawing is has a little more detail, especially this one, and very much this one. So you can see how how they develop. Stonehenge, you've probably heard of. This is pretty amazing as far as like architecture, we would call that. And they still don't know what the actual purpose of that was. There's a lot of speculation. And right after that, around 800 BC, were the Greeks and what they were doing. So if you take a survey, you'll see all the different kinds of statues. They start with very crude, no detail, no sense of movement, no proportion, and no expression. And it comes to the classic, this could be in that category, classical and Hellenistic sort of they overlapped each other, but it shows development, amazing development of where we came from, these more crude statues, although they started being freestanding. They were influenced by the Greek statues, and they were enormous. So the Greeks started making them human size. Then the good old Renaissance, there's the Mona Lisa, it's called the Gioconda, and the famous David. I stood in this room. It's pretty amazing. He's like 8 feet tall, and the base right here, your head would come about there. It's beautiful. The light's coming from down here. This shows an exactly perfect proportion of a human being. And what happened here is you can see this kind of S curve here, um, that because there's a shift in the hip and the what's weight bearing here, that's weight bearing, and that isn't. So they were showing what we really look like when we stand a certain way. The other thing is he has his head turned, so there's a sense of movement. He's articulating this arm, and this arm rests down here. If this looks a little long to you, it was because he had to attach it here. Sometimes there's a little piece of metal that also holds it to there because it can get delicate down here, and they're afraid of damage. This has something right behind it that's kind of a base that hooks onto this for stability. He has, you can't see a close up, but he does have a facial expression. He's David, about to uh, uh, come up against the warrior Goliath. Probably heard that story. This is a Giotto. It's from early Renaissance. This is from middle to high Renaissance. There's three categories. This is when emotion started to show up, and you can see there's a person, probably Mary, and then Jesus, after he died and they pulled him out of the cave that he was in. And also this diagonal to add a little more tension. I don't think these guys were actually articulating that in writing, but they were instinctively doing this. The Baroque, one of my favorites. This is hugely dramatic. The Baroque is all about dramatic in the lighting and in the movement and in the stories themselves. There we have Napoleon. This is when he rose to be emperor. It's funny because in French history, he became, it was right after the Revolution. He started working his way up, and this is when the French got rid of kings and beheaded them. And he comes in as a consul, first as a like a private type in the army and in the French army. He was actually from Corsica. He didn't even speak French for a while, and he had trouble after. But what's odd about this is he goes from that and he rises up and he became a general, and then he started giving different names to himself. After general, he just went ahead and said, "Well, I'll just be an emperor," which is so odd because they had just gotten rid of kings. So he pulled this off. I mean, look at this. If you look at Louis the 14th and 15th and 16th and before, they're all dressed in an extremely luxurious way. This is a neoclassic. This meant that, and you can see some Baroque darkness, that influence, but this is when they started to get almost as fine tuning as almost like a realism, almost like photorealistic. This is where we start the course. So now we start hitting the early 1800s, and we have this sense the artist here wanted to show very ordinary people. He had a tough time, as you can imagine, because only the wealthy were buying pictures of aristocrats, dramatic historical themes, and things like that, portraits. He changed the rules and really upset people here. You can imagine a buying public, if they were only the wealthy, they certainly did not want to see people like this who were actually working for them on their manors and, struggling for even food. So, and notice the universality of this. You don't see the faces. Um, it wasn't considered important. What they wanted to show was the subject matter here, is poverty. Romanticism comes next. This shifted again to dramatic. There were writers now who were changing the rules and writing about more human things. Religion started to become out of the picture. Still was around, especially the Catholic Church. And they, I mean, and they're showing human, there's a sense of solitude and what they call passion and sublime. And you'll read about that in the first week. So this is a human being showing the solitude and loneliness and the largeness of and power of nature that we're up against. Next one, you probably realize this is Monet. He's famous for his water lilies that he did later in his life. And this one you definitely know. This is under the next stylistic name, Post-Impressionism. That was Van Gogh and Gauguin and Edvard Munch from Norway. And they all were doing this, but Van Gogh just took it to a different level. And, there's all kinds of theories about who he was and how he behaved. Dada, surrealism, you know this one, probably don't know what Dada is. It was a period of time when the artists were starting to push against what they call the bourgeois, the wealthy, and they blamed them for a lot of things, like the First World War, for one thing. So many people profited from the war when there was mass slaughter of the boys who went over there. There was a real dearth of boys and men in villages, like it was real, and there weren't as many there, which really caused a kind of a lowering of the numbers of babies in the future. This is Marcel Duchamp. This is called a ready-made. So he invented this new way of kind of thumbing his nose at the status um, status quo, and he's taking there's a postcard, and they're all over Paris. You can probably still see them now. And what he does is something what people considered was disrespectful. He just drew on it. She's got a mustache. And he called it LHOOQ, which I've heard, this is what I've read and heard. It means she's got a hot ass, basically. So it was very disrespectful what the public felt. One of their iconic paintings, and it's been in the Louvre for a long time. And surrealism with Salvador Dali. Then we have the Fauves. That means wild beasts. And Matisse, who did this one, you might recognize that. This is Icarus, the Greek story about this boy who was following his father, but he wanted to reach the sun. And of course, that was impossible. And this is showing him descending, and he died because he couldn't do it. It's very interesting and beautiful. He's using three primary colors of the blue, yellow, and red, and he pops that right in here, and just this stark black. Um, he built you'll read about this. I know I have a video about this. He built a chapel for a convent. One of the nuns there, he got to be very close with her when he was older. She helped him a lot, and they continued to write letters to each other for a long time. Cubism, Picasso, this is his breakthrough painting. He just upset. This is just like one thing after another, upsetting the public until we got used to it. This is in Museum of Modern Art. It's very large. I've been there, and it's something else to see this in person. It was just absolutely amazing what he did. Like he starts throwing in, instead of the faces, African masks. And he was fascinated with that because they had a kind of a national historic museum with all these different, it was actually an exhibit of that, and he saw it, got really influenced by that. That's what artists do, they get influenced. This is regionalism. This now is America, and they started producing and becoming eventually the dominant force in the art world. This is Georgia O'Keeffe, very famous female artist. She resented being called female. She said, "I'm just an artist." This is Edward Hopper. This shows the Solitude. This is done in 1942. The Solitude, again, people were working in factories. It was World War II. And there's just nobody around except these people. If you look at more of his work, it's really, really beautiful. Abstract. So now we have something kind of like Picasso, but a little bit further, where this is totally what you call non-representational. You can't tell what this is because it was not important. They were more interested in shapes, color to affect, and it does affect you when you stand in front of these. No matter, I mean, I've heard my 5-year-old can do it, and that's just not possible. These are 8 feet long, 6 feet wide, in some cases, canvases. I painted a lot when I went to art school, and I know how hard this is. These are layers upon layers upon layers. So no 5-year-old could handle that. This is another expressionist, Mark Rothko, completely different, more serene. Minimalism, that drove people crazy, just absolutely non-representational. It represents nothing. But when you read, this is Barnett Newman, when you read about him, you learn more about him. And Andy Warhol, you probably know him in pop art. He did these in lithographs, drove people nuts. Neo-expressionism came later. This almost looks like a photograph. Gerhard Richter is German, and quite beautiful because it looks soft and blurry. but it still looks like a photograph of a beautiful scene. That's not the kind of work he did later. This is Susan Rothenberg. She did horses almost completely. And then we get into more current times, modern and postmodern. You will learn about Banksy. He is an anonymous. He's been doing this for around 20 years, if not longer. He's British, and he is just poking the nose at everybody in the establishment, and particularly wealthy and war. And you can see that he's throwing flowers at a tank. Jeff Koons, he makes these incredibly beautiful manufactured. Um, I don't even know what it's not plastic, it's something else. I'd have to look it up. In all different sizes, and they're all over the world and different colors. This is something I really like. I used to have this, this used to be in another textbook under drawing. And this is a way of making marks that look like drawing, but it's actually carpenter tape. But she can handle all these different various aspects of this. Jean-Claude and Christo, a couple from France, and they started this. Nobody's ever done anything like this. This is called the running fence. He put this up in Marin County. What he does is he works out the kind of the scope of it here. I think it was like 25 miles. And he had to go get the permission, because this is public art, he had to get the permission of everyone who lived. And these are all ranchers. And at first he had a really hard time. They were all, thinking he was just a weirdo. And I don't want him on my property. And after the county board started getting involved, ranchers don't like those people. They feel misunderstood, and they started switching to the other side and approved, all of them approved this, and it was stunning. I had this really amazing, he documented everything with film, and there's whole shows on that. So, and I'm going to have the school buy it so you can get it if you want. He's done so many projects and they're all unique. Oh, the other thing unique about this, he spends a couple of years, because he has to go through public hearings, and it takes a long time. A lot of time he's being insulted by people like the board and the public, or at the hearings, and they end up, after about 6 months of putting up whatever the project is, they come to love it. And his uniqueness is that it's only up 2 weeks. All of his pieces and artwork and projects stay up 2 weeks, and nobody's ever done that. It's kind of the idea of nothing lasts forever, and how humans, it's a way of showing that, but there is really just amazing. This is the new architecture. This is in Spain. It's called Bilbao. It's a museum. It's got some of the most important modern art in it. And Frank Gehry did this. He's a fascinating guy all on his own. Here's another one. This is more of the 80s. You can see, again, the women were doing this, and when the feminist movement was coming along, but, they don't like that category. They're just, I'm a woman, I'm showing artwork I feel passionate about. So this is about advertising, not just advertising, but this is a famous, um, it's a famous phrase by, I think it was Isaac Newton, and he said, I think, therefore I am. And she has turned that on its head and saying, all we care about is shopping, and that's our identity now. And this is another one that she did, Barb Kruger. So you can switch on that and see some more. This is another Banksy that's one of my favorites. If graffiti changed anything, it would be illegal. And of course, it is illegal. He uses rats a lot because he's looking about the inner city. So these are just a few more. This is Hendy Wiley. You're going to see him at the end of the course. just, I can't even describe his work. And when you see it in person, they're enormous and quite beautiful. This is showing how he has taken this famous painting of Napoleon on his horse during a campaign, and he recreated that in his own way. He's a black man, and you can see everything is the same here. And Napoleon wrote there's a writing of the name down there and the campaign, and he's done the same thing. Same kind of horse, but it's a young black man. He's making just statement after statement after statement. Look at this frame. It's very ornate, more than this one. And he just, I mean, it's kind of shocking to see. These are really big paintings. And then he does this fancy wallpaper, very Baroque or Rococo. You would see that period around the Baroque period, right after the Renaissance, and meticulous, and it's amazing. It's so large. And then now we have the more modern, um, different global areas, including places like Iran, some of these oppressed areas that artists, even females, and you know how they're treated, and they have to move out of their country, and then they can express themselves and their lives and trauma sometimes. This is actually showing one of these that is a bracelet. You can't really call it a bracelet because it's on their leg, and it's to control them. So that's that. And I hope that you see this is the context of all of this. And I hope you appreciate that what this whole span of these are.